If you do everything that you're supposed to, like you live a higher quality of life, I can't adjust myself. My WTF moment was I never asked. Leader that has no followers is somebody just taking a walk.
Absolutely.
The day that I went to chiropractic college and graduated, I went through 11 different jobs.
Wow. Known as El Presidente, Dr. Edwin Cordero grew up knowing what struggle looked like and turned every setback into a stepping stone. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Leadership isn't about titles, it's about transformation. And that's exactly what Dr. Cordero is bringing to this interview. From serving in the Navy to building a multi-million-dollar chiropractic practice from scratch to reigniting Sherman College of Chiropractic from the brink of failure into a global force in the chiropractic educational world. Here's the thing, a lot of people don't know this, but the biggest mistake most so-called leaders make is, and that is what Dr. Cordero will share, that secret in this interview. As the international speaker, strategist, and consultant, his new book, Against All Odds, is more than a title. It's a tactical playbook for those who want to lead with purpose when the rope starts to fray. This isn't just about leadership. It's a masterclass in resilience, focus, and adaptability like you have never seen before. Get ready to meet the man who didn't just beat the odds, he rewired the system. Here you go. You ready? If you were at a dinner party with total strangers and someone asked you, what do you do and what inspired you to do it? How would you answer that question?
Wow, you're shooting off the hip immediately. Well, it's very simple. If I'm at a dinner party and I'm sitting with some people that don't know me, I would tell them that I'm a business consultant with 32 years experience as a doctor of chiropractic in private practice and running businesses. And so that would be my response, to them. And then, of course, it opens up opportunities for certain questions.
Okay, so Doctor of Chiropractic, walk us through, for those who may not be familiar with that, what is a Doctor of Chiropractic?
So we're doctors that specialize specifically, we're specialists of the nervous system. We're not neurologists, but we're doctors that ensure that the nervous system is communicated with the entire body. So we know we have the brainstem, and the brainstem is communicated through all the different nerves that go to all the different corresponding parts of the body. That brain sends mental impulses, and those mental impulses, what they do is they go through the nervous system to all the parts of the body, the organs, the tissue, the cells, the muscles. Everything that's composed of the body is controlled through this nervous system. So as long as the brain is sending those mental impulses to all the different parts of the body is said to be healthy, that it's working in harmony and balance, and thus the person is healthy. Health is not that you eat right, that you exercise. Health is that your nervous system is communicated with the entire body, free of interferences.
Okay, so if the nervous system is almost like central control, right? Everything goes through that. If I am eating healthy, I'm exercising, doing all the right things, then that means I'm doing good, right? I'm okay.
So the cool, I have to laugh because every time I speak to a patient, that's their thought process. They assume that if they're eating right and they're doing exercise, they're doing more than most of the people are to try to create health within their body. But what they don't understand is this: you can eat as good as you want. You can eat vegan. You can eat, gluten free. You can have the best of everything as far as a diet is concerned, but your body cannot assimilate that food that you're ingesting and use that food to allow your body to function better, because if the nervous system is not functioning correctly, it can't use the vitamins. It can't use the nutrients from that food to allow the body to utilize it to the best of its ability for the body to function. So one of the situations that people think is, well, if I'm eating right, I am contributing to my health. You're not. You can eat right. You can spend money on the top food. It's not going to do absolutely anything to help your body if the master control, thus the central nervous system controller here, is not functioning. Then the body's not going to function either. So don't spend money and don't go and do things that people think they're going to help them if they first hasn't taken the first step. So the fix would be, let me make sure that my nervous system is functioning, because if my nervous system functioning, now that food, now that exercise, now those things that I do, that positive mental attitude, all those things that I'm doing, now the body's going to function at its highest capacity, because the central nervous system, the master control of the body is functioning, sending the mental impulses so the body can start to do exactly what the body has to do to function at 100% of its capacity.
Almost like having a really high-end sports car, and if you put crappy gas in it, it's going to, perform as whatever fuel you put into it. But if the parts of the engine, if I understand this correctly, are also not functioning right, it doesn't matter what you do, right? So all has to be part and parcel. So I want to go down that path a little bit further. What are some other myths or misconceptions that most of us have around our bodies or health or nutrition?
So one common thing, after 32 years of seeing patients, one of the common things people go, oh, well, I'm so tired. I mean, I worked so hard this week. I'm so tired. I need to rest this weekend and be able to recoup. So I'm ready to go on Monday. Well, guess what? When you have a proper functioning nervous system, okay, when you're eating right, when you're exercising, when you have the positive mental attitude and everything is working the way that the body is designed to work, you're not going to get tired, Rico.
Really?
You'll have episodes. Yeah, you won't get tired because every part of your body is functioning the way that it should. I've seen patients, 18 years old, that have a mentality or they don't take care of themselves and they act like 80 or 90 years old.
Wow.
And I've seen 75-year-old patients, 80-year-old patients that outdo everything that I do at 64 years old. And so what we have to understand, and the myths are, if your body is functioning the way that it's supposed to, if you're giving it the nutrients, and you're doing your exercise, and you do your positive mental attitude, you do some mental checks to keep you in balance and energized, and then you're getting your nervous system functioning, you will not be as tired as most of your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors. You're going to notice that you have more energy to do things, to spend time with your children, to spend more time with your spouse, your significant others. So one of the myths is energy is related directly to me overworking. No, that's not true. Energy has to do with your body and your system functioning at 100% of its capacity. Thus, you don't have those times of feeling drained or,
Right.
or that you just can't function properly.
So chiropractic can also have some myths around it, correct? Where there's misconceptions or misassumptions or whatever it may be. For the listeners that are out there that either had a bad experience or not even aware of what chiropractic is, what it truly is chiropractic in the sense that you're explaining as far as health, and how can someone know that they're getting the right, proper chiropractic care?
So that's a very loaded question, Rico, because chiropractic, the understanding of chiropractic is they're going to just crack my back.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
I used to do karate. I can just do my own thing.
Right.
I don't need to go spend money to have a chiropractor adjust me. Or, oh my God, the cracking of the noise, the sound that the bones make when you're getting adjustment just scares me. Other common thing is, well, you know what? I'll go to the chiropractor as long as I'm in pain. When I'm out of pain, I'm done. I don't need to go back to the chiropractor. And maybe I'll go to the chiropractor once a year when that pain comes back. And all those things are valid concerns because if you're not educated about what chiropractic is, but more important, what chiropractic is not, that's when those responses come to fruition. Mm-hmm. And so let's back that up a little bit. So first of all, I can't adjust myself. Why? Because there's protective mechanisms built within the body where you can't go and automatically adjust yourself. There's going to be some protective mechanism that's not going to allow you to adjust yourself. Okay. Now, some people do that. That's called the manipulation. A manipulation is a gross movement, and you may hear a popping noise. An adjustment is a specific intended movement to take a vertebrae off of a nerve that's being pinched. So now that nerve can start to send the signals to that part of the body so the body can function at a higher capacity. So the real reason for you or anybody listening to this program to go to a chiropractor is not to remove your back pain. It's not to make you feel better. It's not because, oh my God, the euphoria that I get when I get an adjustment. None of those things is what you go to a chiropractor for. You go to the chiropractor because you want to maintain the ability of the body to function at 100% of its capacity all the time, from birth to 100 years of age. If you do everything that you're supposed to, like we talked about this before, if you're eating right, if you're exercising, if you're positive mental attitude and you're getting adjusted, you live a higher quality of life because your body's functioning at a higher capacity. And so part of the problem in our profession, it's always been this way, is that the majority of the chiropractors that are practicing don't understand that concept. So they want to treat people from a pain perspective. Come on in, let me adjust you, pain's going to go away. Yes, the pain will go away, but they're not teaching the person that it's not about taking away your pain, it's about increasing the capacity of the body to function better. So overall, you have a full health potential to your body, not just taking away the symptoms. So when I was the CEO of Sherman College of Chiropractic in Spartanburg, South Carolina, we would teach our doctors, our student doctors, that it's about function. It's about creating a better opportunity for the body to function at its capacity, not to cover symptoms.
Right.
You can take an aspirin and it'll take away the pain much faster than a chiropractic adjustment would do. But repetitive chiropractic adjustments, when needed, maintains the body functioning at a higher level, thus the body being healthy.
You can see your 30 years of experience right there. So let me backtrack. You've been a CEO of Sherman, you've been a CEO of Max Living, now you're the CEO of the ICA. You have a ton of experience both in the medical and professional world. But what I want to know is what inspired you to take this path of chiropractic that has now provided you with this career?
When my wife, Debbie, we just got married, she had some injuries due to work-related situations. And so she ended up going to a chiropractor because she wanted to go down a preventative, situation. So she went to this chiropractor and she says, Ed, I want you to come with me. I knew nothing about chiropractic, nothing. I was completely clueless, like maybe most of the people that are going to be listening to this podcast. And so I went to support her. So my wife decided to go to a chiropractor because she was having some challenges with her back and she wanted to go through a natural approach. And so she went to the chiropractor. We were just, recently married, basically in our honeymoon stage. And so I ended up going with her. When I went there, my mind was blown. This chiropractor was so eloquent. He really took the time to explain to her what her challenges were, what the consequences are of her body being through trauma, and thus what chiropractic could do to help her. And he told us right from day one, this is about time. This is not something that's going to be fixed in 3 chiropractic adjustments. It's something that's going to necessitate some time. And so she started seeing the chiropractor and we were both blown away. She was getting healthier. Now, this is what she never told the doctor. She was having problems with menstrual issues. Those things disappeared immediately, even though she didn't go there for menstrual issues. She started getting better from migraine headaches that she was having, even though she didn't tell the chiropractor that she was having migraine headaches. She went there for a back injury. But because now the body was being regulated and working properly, now all these other things that were there started to work in a normal fashion, allowing the headaches to go away, allowing the menstrual cramps and the menstrual issues to go away. But more importantly, her whole nervous system was in balance and working the way that it should. And that really intrigued me. And I said, you know what? This is what I want to do with my life. I was just getting out of the military. I served in the Navy for 6 years. And I went to this first visit with her and I was sold. And so I asked the doctor some simple questions. Where do I go to study? What do I need to do? And he was so wonderful, gave me all this information. And I would say that, like most of us, Rico, it took me 6 years after that to actually take the initiative to follow through because it was so simple what he was explaining to me. So I got blinded by the light. There's a comment that says, you're blinded by the light. It made so much sense that I got blinded. And then it took me 6 years to actually pull the trigger. And so after 6 years, I was able to go to chiropractic school, graduate, and then practice for 32 years.
Wow, what a story. So you've seen a lot of patients, right? And, we're at WTF. What are some of critical physical, I would call WTF physicalities that you've seen that chiropractic made a massive difference? Do you have any examples of that?
So I had this 10-year-old boy. He was completely paralyzed. He had some problems with his muscles, myasthenia gravis. His muscles became like pieces of wood, like a board. And this kid was 10 years old and he looked like he was 4 years old. I was doing a radio show at one time, interview on a radio show, and they asked me about, some difficult cases. And so I said, no matter what the case is, at least you'll benefit from getting your neurology checked to see if vertebrae are misaligned, putting pressure on the nervous system and thus not allowing the body to function. Bring in those difficult, challenging cases. Let's take a look at them and let's see what we could do. And if there's something chiropractically that we can do, we will. And if it's not. So the WTF moment there, Rico, was, well, what does chiropractic have to do with myasthenia gravis?
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. I would go to a neurologist or to a specialist. So my moment, the fixing the problem was, let's look at the most important system of your body, which is the nervous system. If that nervous system is free and clear, then I can't help you. Perfectly fine. You have not lost anything. But if there's issues, there's interferences between that communication between the brain and the body in the nervous system, well, then the chiropractic can help. And so they brought in the patient, 10 years old. He looks like he was 4 years old. They had to carry him because his body was just completely rigid, all the muscles, the limbs, everything. And the baby wouldn't speak, or not the baby, the young person couldn't speak. The baby wouldn't cry. It was just complete, like this person didn't exist, basically. They bring him in. I did the test that I could. I used the instrumentation to check out the nervous system. And I realized that the first bone of the neck, they call it the mouth of God, because the first bone in the neck is where the brain stem goes through. And any movement to that first bone puts pressure on the brain stem. Thus, the nervous system can't go to the muscles, to the tissues, to the cells, to the organs. And so I told the parents, I said, listen, that bone is out of place. We can, through chiropractic care, realign that. And we're going to allow the master system of the body, the nervous system, to be free. What happens? I have no control over that. But I know that we need to remove this interference. And so they trusted me. So I adjusted the person, the child. Within 3 minutes, the kid started to scream at the top of his lungs. In 10 years, a kid has never screamed. Within seconds, the kid starts to cry, which the kid had no emotional connection whatsoever. So here's the kid crying and screaming. The parents are screaming of excitement and crying. I'm crying and screaming because there was a miracle that happened. Now, that's not going to happen with every chiropractic point. So the WTF point about that is we don't know what's going to happen, but as a patient, you're better off without chiropractic, without interferences to the nervous system than you are with those interferences there. So we're not treating symptoms. We're allowing the body to function at its capacity when the nervous system can go to all the organs, the tissues, and the cell. And the body uses the innate intelligence, the wisdom of the body, to then do what it needs to do. But as long as those signals are interfered with, the body loses its capacity, and thus all the problems that we see on a day-to-day basis.
That's an incredible story right there, which dovetails really well when we talk about, and you have so much experience in this, leadership, business development, things of that nature. Those two things happen, right? You wait too long to start, or there's something preventing you from being your best self, an interference, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in the Navy, you've had your own business, CEO of several organizations. When we talk about both health, mental health, physical health, what a role does that play for leaders, business owners, or even employees to be at their very best self? And they don't even realize that that's the main reason why they have, like you said, low energy. They can't think clearly. They may be disengaged. How do those two play together?
So I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to answer that. So I go to this church, and the pastor of the church every 3 months would disappear for a week. And so at the beginning, not knowing why the pastor was disappearing for a week, one time I pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, Pastor so-and-so, why is it that every month or every quarter, you would disappear for a week?" And he goes, "That's my time to focus. That's my time to read my sermons. That's my time to read the books of interest that I may have in leadership. And that's the time that I would take a week and I would just immerse myself into that. So when I come back every quarter, I am ready to serve at my highest capacity." When I became a CEO, and I'm just being transparent, when I became a CEO at Sherman College of Chiropractic, I worked almost 3 years nonstop, 7 days a week, because I thought that my job required me to do that. Well, guess what? You get burned out. I started to have panic attacks. I started not to sleep well at night. The higher the stress, the more my neurological system was being affected. And then I remembered the conversation that I had with the pastor. And then I sat down with my executive team. I said, guys, every 3 months, I need to take a mental break. And I may just take a weekend, a long weekend, or a 4-day weekend. And so what I did is I allowed myself some time to create balance. I would catch up on the reading that I wanted to grow as a leader and become more effective leader. I was able then to just give myself the opportunity to create this balance. And then when I would come back, I was ready to go. And so ever since I learned that lesson, and I've been a CEO now for over 12 years, I have instilled not only in myself, but in my executive team and leadership that, you know what, we have to create this balance for you to function at the highest level possible. They loved it because they never did that. And number two, we all were clear when we came back to be able to function towards the task that we needed to do to help the organization grow and move forward.
And that is such a critical point that I don't think many leaders take in consideration. They tend to focus so much on their work and the results and the outcome of things that they don't understand there is a price to pay that you're paying in your physical ability, your health ability, which affects how you make a decision. And when you see toxic environments in the workplace and you look at the leader, there are either workaholics or micromanagers because they're so focused on the results and there's no balance and doesn't create a psychologically safe environment. And I've watched you be able to have that balance with the employees in the work environment. And that's a really good insight for a lot of leaders out there that if you don't take time for yourself, you're going to add more stress and pressure to the employees that you expect them to perform. And it's important to have that unique balance, but understanding what you said about the nervous system, whether you're eating well or exercising, if you're also not taking care of your nervous system, then many of the things you think you're doing that is good for you may be affecting you negatively. So what can a leader do as we're talking about health and taking care of themselves if they recognize, you know what, that sounds like me. I do 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, because that's what I think I need to do. What are some of the signs that they need to pay attention to that it's affecting them in their nervous system, their mental capacity? And then what are some things that you did to course correct step by step?
So in the nervous system, you have what's called a parasympathetic and a sympathetic. There's two parts to the nervous system. The sympathetic is the part that the body is go, go, go. It's the fight or flight response within the body. The parasympathetic is the slowing down portion of the body. So there's this yin and yang, if we want to use that word, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. When you are a leader and you're running 100 miles an hour and you're not taking time to rest and you're not taking time to delegate and you're not taking time to spend vacation with your significant other, your family, your children, the sympathetics just go 100 miles an hour. And eventually you end up having paranoid moments, okay?
Yeah.
You start to have thoughts. You start to not be able to sleep, like I said before. You start to have migraines and headaches. You start to have palpitations in your heart, and you're thinking you're having a heart attack. And that's the sympathetic part of the nervous system working as fast as it can because it's a fight or flight response. So the nervous system is responsible to protect the body. So thus, it's going to do everything in its power. So it's like the lion is chasing me. I'm not going to stop. And your body throws the blood, instead of the blood going to your muscles and whatever, or to organs, it's going to go to the muscles.
Right.
So that way you can run faster to get away from the fear of
Right.
what's attacking you. So this is the interesting thing. The body doesn't know the difference whether somebody has a gun on you and is going to, try to rob you, or you're having 9,000 things happening at work and you're allowing that to happen. Stress is stress. The body doesn't distinguish which the threat is. The body knows this threat. It's going to run as fast as it can. Thus, then all the symptoms that are going to become because of that. So what I did was when I started having the panic attacks, I went to my chiropractor and I said, listen, I've been a chiropractic patient as long as I've been a chiropractor for the past 32 years. But this job I'm so out of balance Can you please just make sure that my nervous system is functioning right? And the chiropractor, this is funny. So I always got my right side of the neck. The bone was always out to the right side for 20 something years of chiropractic. When I went to go see the chiropractor after I got this job for the first time as a CEO, my spine turned to the opposite direction. I
Oh,
was getting
wow.
adjusted on the right. I was getting adjusted on the right,
Right.
and it was actually making it worse.
Oh,
Okay, because of
wow.
the stress. So when the chiropractor did her analysis and she looked at it, she goes, "Ed, you are a left atlas, which is the first
Right.
bone. You're a left atlas, not a." I'm like, no, 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 no. I've been a right atlas for 20 something. Nope. Look, and she showed me the MRI and the X-rays. Sure enough, I was a left atlas. She started adjusting it. My nervous system started calming down. I started taking some steps. So I'm going to give you some of the steps. So I started delegating the task to my
Yes.
executive team because I wanted to do all the work. I was the guy, Rico, that I would shut up at executive meeting, and as soon as a problem arose, I would give them the solution. Nobody else had an opportunity to speak,
Right.
and they weren't going to say anything because I was the CEO.
Right.
So even if they had a different opinion, they weren't going to embarrass me. So I learned that, you know what? I keep my mouth shut. I'm the last person to speak when we're handling something with the executive team. So I started delegating. I started allowing the executive team to voice their wisdom in the situation and what were their recommendations. And then I would either accept that and implement it, or I would go, guys, that sounds great, but what if we did this? And I would make them be part of the decision making. I started taking the time off, like I said before, and I started making sure that I was more going to the chiropractor more frequently than I normally did. All of a sudden, panic attacks went away. I was sleeping better. My energy level was back again. My mind was clear because I was getting this fog
Hmm.
of thought. And this is the most important part. I started becoming more decisive in making decisions. So something that I would wait a week or two, now my mind was clear that I was be able to make the decisive decision. A leader has to be a decisive leader. And if you're not a decisive leader, you better learn a method that helps you to become more decisive in making decisions for your organization.
I want to go back to, because I see this so often. You're in that executive meeting, a problem arises, you know the solution, and you solve it. Well, let's go back to the how the body reacts. So imagine your executive team, what's happening in their nervous system, their survival mechanism every time a leader or CEO does that. What's happening to them, and then what is the outcome of that for that individual?
So first of all, they feel like they're not being appreciated. Okay,
Right.
I'm an executive. I've earned this title because I've been here X amount of years. I finally here at the table to make decisions. But now every time there's a problem, the CEO or the person in charge at that moment makes all the decisions. So my wisdom is not valued. That's
Right.
number one. Number two, after repetitive situations of the similar situation, well, then you just keep your mouth shut and now you just agree and you just become a yes person. And most people are yes people. And the executives have to understand that you're there because you are valued for your wisdom, for your experience, for your knowledge. We want to hear you because you may have the answer that even though I'm, as a CEO, probably have been in the field a lot longer, I've never thought about it like that. So I'll give you a prime example. You and I worked together many times. So in my team, we did the DISC profiling, right? So the behavioral profiling to see who was the people that were more analytical and data driven, plus the ones that were more relational or the ones that are more direct. And I realized that my whole team was analytical, data
Yes.
driven,
Yeah.
and myself was like, go, 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 go. And so when I was communicating with them at the executive meetings, Rico, I would tell them that I wanted this. I didn't even give them time to process the data, to do research, to find out what are the opportunities for them to make recommendations. And they would yes me to death, and we weren't accomplishing anything. And when you came in and helped us with the DISC profiling and the behavioral processes to become better at communicating, all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, when I'm talking to my team, I need to be quiet. I need to tell them that if they want to give me the bullet points so that way I understand. But when I'm talking to them, I got to give them time to process. I got to give them time to look at the information, the data, for them to research the data, and then give them some time to come back. And I would say, okay, so this is the problem. I'm not going to mention names, but the
Yeah.
people that were the data-driven individuals, you guys have 3 days. I need an answer within 3 days. It was plenty of time, and it changed the whole dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
They were valued, they were respected, they were heard, they were seen. So
Mm-hmm.
as a leader, I was able to value them. And you know what? We went through COVID. We went through incredible challenges that normally an organization would have completely failed, but we were able to function because we were all on the same page, understanding, and we all respected each other's areas of expertise. A CEO doesn't mean I have all the answers.
Right. Right.
Okay, that's why I have a team of people.
Right.
And so when I ran into something that I was solid, I would give the answer. When I didn't, I would go, Rico, you're my academic person. What do you think about these things? And so we valued the team. Organization grew. We were able to manage things faster, and everybody was on board, and everybody felt respected. And I think that was a key moment for our organization to transition to become more effective, because you taught us these skill sets that made a huge difference for us.
And that was a really critical moment, America, because you're such an entrepreneur, and your team was very academic. And just culturally, and if we just take the behaviors out of the equation, when you look culturally, well, that culture is going to attract a certain type of temperament and individual. An academic, it tends to be more introverted or logical, and you saw a problem, the situation required decisive action, but the sense of urgency you had was contradicting the academics or introverted that needed some time to understand why this was the right path. And this is true for any organization. The lack of clear understanding and communication within the culture and temperament is what causes so much friction in any organization. And that's why it's so important that when you hire, you don't just look at skills, you look at what culture they're going to be in, what team are they working with, and what is the leadership style of the person managing that team. Not that you definitely need diversity, you don't want the same kind of person, but if we learn to adjust and communicate, just like we learn to communicate different languages or in different countries, we improve collaboration. And then going back to what you just said is, they are heard, they're respected, and they're seen just because of that. When you are in a situation where those three things are not in place, I'm not heard, I'm not respected, I'm not being seen, that fight or flight becomes self-survival. And that creates friction. And it's just that small little thing that if you just take the time to understand, how does that person perceive information? How do they find solutions? And more importantly, how do they want me to communicate with them? As a leader, you are adapting to that because then they become more productive. So I've got to tease you a little bit. So you've been a CEO, you've been all these leadership roles, you have such great successes. And I know that every leader tends to learn more from failure than successes. So I want you to think back, what would you consider one of your biggest leadership WTF moments in your career?
So recently, I was the CEO for a company, and there was challenges within the company that immediately the experience that I've had throughout the years, I saw through what that organization was struggling with, and something that was going to take them 5 years, they put it on my table. Is that right, Doc? We want you to handle this situation here, and within a year's time, I did what that company, through leadership, I did what that company wanted to get done, but they thought it was going to take them 5 years to do it. I did it in a year's time. And I was sat down and said, you're working too fast. You have to slow down. There's no way that you got this done in a year. And people started to become afraid. So you have to be careful, because the speed as a leader, as a CEO, where you see the challenges, if you're not connected with your team, in this case, my problem was I didn't ask the board. Was it okay for me to go 100 miles an hour? because that's just me. I just assumed they knew the type of person that I was. And so I was going 100 miles an hour, but I never asked for permission. I never confirmed whether or not that's what they wanted. Well, guess what? It wasn't what they wanted because they were planning on a 3 to 5 year growth, and I gave them the growth in a year, and they had silo mentality issues in different departments, and they freaked out completely. And at that time, we had to part ways because I was on one mindset and they were on a different mindset. Not that they were wrong and not that I was wrong. It's just we weren't there. So my WTF moment was I never asked. I should have asked. How fast do you want me to do this? Is that something you want done in 6 months, or is that something that's going to take 2 years? Because I could have done it either way. But my personality, the way that I am and built, it's 100 miles an hour, and we're going to get it done as soon as possible so the organization can continue to grow. So that WTF moment was that I never asked, you know?
Okay.
And so now I learned from that.
So if you were, hindsight being 2020, if you were mentoring yourself at that time or someone like you, what's the fix, right? How do they recognize the situation? How do they prevent that issue? And then how do they make sure they get the results everyone's looking for?
So the number one issue that I found in myself and in leadership is lack of clarity. So in that moment, if I was talking to myself, the first thing I need to do is let me get some clarity. Like I said, let me go to talk to the board. Let me go talk to see, to the administrative people. Let me make sure that these processes and procedures, and people, that we have the right resources to do what we needed to do. And so what I did, and my mistake was I did it too fast without doing and having a clarity and creating clarity in the conversation. The second thing that I did was I started calling everybody on my Rolodex. This is how old I am. I started calling everybody on my Rolodex, that I knew that could help me to achieve the goal that I needed to achieve. And so without preparing the team as well, I brought in people to help me and the business, and that created a threat.
Yeah.
To the employees that were there, because I wasn't clear with them either. I should have sat down and said, okay, Ed, talk to the board, talk to the executive team, make sure you talk to your administrative team, let them know that you're going to bring in consultants and coaches to help the organization. Nobody's job is going to be threatened,
right?
Because we need you. But they automatically assumed that they were going to be replaced, thus causing unnecessary issues and challenges for the organization.
Absolutely.
So those are some of the situations. So if I had to do it all over again, create clarity, have proper conversations with people, let them know the vision and the mission of where we're going. Because maybe in the past, the vision and mission was in the middle, but we needed to turn a little bit to the right. And so let them know the direction that we were going to go into, and to reassure them that if they came on this ride, as long as they did their job, everybody was good to go, and the organization was going to take care of everybody. But I didn't do that, and I learned from that mistake. And it was a costly mistake. I'm going to be transparent with you. It was a costly mistake for me as a CEO, but the wisdom that I gained, I cherish it.
Absolutely. And like I said, we all learn from those mistakes. The key is how do we apply that lesson into wisdom? Now, part of what you've done and how you've imparted that wisdom is your book, right? Against All Odds. Tell me a little bit about this book. Why did you write it, and what can people gather from this book when they read it?
So I was between the CEO positions from one to the other. I don't know if people know this, but when you're a CEO and you're at the highest level, and all of a sudden things happen where you need to walk away or agreed. What happens is there's not 1,000 CEO jobs available.
Exactly.
Right. So the only time they replace the CEO is when something's not working.
Right.
So if everything's working, the CEO is going to be there for a long time. And so I had this lapse of time, about 11 months, and I decided that I just had so many stories and so many things happened to me. So I'm a first generation person to go to college in my family. Wow. I'm a first generation person to graduate as a doctor of any kind in my family. I'm the first one that actually left Puerto Rico, where my family lives, and they've always been there. I'm one of the first ones to leave to come to the US to seek better for myself and for my family as well. And so I had this 11-month period where I wanted to write a book. But because I go 100 miles an hour, and that's who I am, so those of you that understand, I wrote the book in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Interesting because the book was done, but it took the publisher 3 or 4 months to get the book. And I was like, man, this guy's so slow. I don't know what's going on. Meanwhile, that was the time frame for that. But the book is about against all odds, meaning I really didn't have any support in my life. I didn't have any role models. I was the first one that started carving and paving a way for success. I left Puerto Rico. I came to the United States. I served in the military for 6 years. And I started writing about everything that happened to me from a job perspective. Between high school and the day that I went to chiropractic college and graduated, I went through 11 different jobs.
Wow.
And each one of those jobs, Rico, were like, I painted houses. I did things that were just like crazy, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that,
No.
but it was a journey that I went through. And every job, I thought that I was a loser at the job, but man, I learned so much out of every single one of those skill sets, character building. And so I basically, listen, if I went through 11 jobs and these are the experiences that I went through, and then I had an opportunity to become a CEO and they threw me in the mix. I think I think this is funny. My first board meeting at my first CEO position, they said, Dr. Cordero, welcome. We're so excited that you're here. By the way, we're going to close out the school in 11 months if things don't change. And I was like, why didn't anybody tell me? I would have loved to know.
Surprise! Here you go.
Yeah, surprise, welcome. And so the beautiful thing about it is that I took all those 11 jobs, I took all the lessons learned of those 11 jobs, and I implemented in the CEO role. And then I implemented in the next CEO role, and I'm implemented now in this CEO role that I'm in right now. And so I wanted to share a book that was a transformational book. There's transaction and there's transformation. Everybody loves transaction. We all do as entrepreneurs. Very few people come from a transformational perspective. And I wanted to write the book from a simple biographic. This is who I am. This is where I served in the military. These are the 11 jobs, but these are the lessons that I learned. And this is how I applied those lessons to the leadership CEO positions that made me a successful CEO in all three of those positions that I was blessed to have that opportunity. So that's what the book does. It gives leadership, advice. It gives perspective on what to do, what not to do. It's about transformation. Forget about the setbacks. It's transforming so you can now lead and become more successful at whatever you choose to do in life.
So I want to kind of do two things with the transformational and the transactional. You said that there was a lot of learned lessons, right? Leadership lessons, life lessons. Is there one particular lesson, maybe they can find in the book, that had the greatest impact to who you are today?
Repeat the question one more time. I'm so sorry.
Is there a particular lesson you learned through this journey that has had the greatest impact in who you are today?
Right. So to me, I would say, first of all, buy the book so that way you can
exactly. All the links will be
there.
down in the notes on how to get it.
I am joking. I think the biggest lesson was that I have to be a leader, and you know this better than anybody being in the military. In the military, they teach us leadership. And what they do is that if you're a leader, your responsibility is to create other leaders, because if you're killed in battle or in a mission, if you're killed there and you're the only leader, the mission stops completely. But if you raise up other leaders within your team and something, God forbid, happens to you as a leader, the mission continues because the leaders that you prepare can continue the mission. To me, that was a lesson that I learned, in everything that happened in my lifetime. I'm a leader that builds other leaders. I'm a leader's leader. Why? Because the mission is so big that I would be very arrogant to think that I'm the only one that can come up with the solution to be the successful business person or successful leader or successful CEO. So I in that book, I really realized that my gift was narrowing gaps in challenges and throwing away people that I thought, not that I thought, that leaders think that they don't have the capacity.
Right.
But I gave everybody a responsibility.
Yes.
I gave them an opportunity to share wisdom. I taught them leadership skills because I wanted to train them that they could replace me. And guess what? Most people won't do that, Rico, because they're afraid that they're going to lose their position or that they're threatened because of challenge. On the contrary, if I can build enough people to replace me, I tell you what, that's the biggest lesson that I learned, because the mission will continue to succeed. And if I'm passionate about that mission, otherwise I wouldn't be part of the organization, then I want that mission to continue for in perpetuity. So that way, create more leaders, allow more leaders to be able to grow in wisdom so they can share that to the next generation. And so to me, I think that that's the biggest thing that I learned writing this book and that I apply in my leadership. So I'll give you a prime example. In academia, there was a person that was so talented, but undervalued for years. I saw the value in that person, and I helped that person with the leadership in making sure that that person could go to school, get a master's degree, and then that person went and got a PhD that was super beneficial to the organization. And right now, that person could have replaced me immediately for that job. And that really just got me so excited that I was able to pour into the next generation of leaders, where most leaders won't do that.
No, and that is so critical. And if you're listening to this and you're a young leader, and I know that most people think about their careers and responsibilities and things of that nature, but truly, truly exceptional leaders are doing exactly what Dr. Cordero is talking about. Is they're looking for their replacement. They're mentoring their replacement, and that replacement may not stay in the company, may go somewhere else. But there comes a time that when you reach a certain level as leadership, that you're now sharing your wisdom for the next generation. That is a true, not only a humble, but a very confident leader. Because now it's not about you. And leaders that are micromanaging or overwhelming, or they think that the results and the money and the prestige are the thing, they're the ones that are creating the friction of all the other people. And so much great talent is lost because of leadership. Gallup poll still has 72% of people leave because of their manager, not because of what they were hired for. That should tell you something. So any leader that's out there listening to this message, as you grow your skills and ability, you start to really fine-tune the essence of leadership by mentoring that person next to you, or that person coming next as you get promoted. So you're helping that industry, and it helps you in general from that.
So Rico, let me give you another quick little example.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So because of creating these leaders in this one organization, when I went to another organization and I ran into some issues that I was uncomfortable with, or I didn't have all the answers, guess who I picked up the phone and called? The leaders that I trained. And they were like, oh my God, Dr. Cordero, no problem. This, and this is the wisdom that I would share with you. And I was able to implement that in the second company that I was, because I left the organization grazing those leaders, and they were so appreciative of the opportunities. So you may not benefit from it. You think you may not benefit from it directly, but guess what? You have created a relationship for life, and you've created people that are so happy to have worked with you.
Exactly.
Because you opened up those opportunities. So it is a transformational mindset, not a transactional.
Exactly.
It's not a tit for tat. It's like, listen, I'm trying to transform your life so you can transform other people's life. But by me doing that, I'm transforming my life as well. So it's a win-win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, we rise by lifting others, right? Leadership. The true leadership success is measured by the success of the people you've led. That's where leadership comes from. So is there a particular story in the book that stands out for you that you'd share with the audience?
So there's a story in the book that talks about when I was 2 years old. So my mom told me a story. My mom said, and I have to trust the source. My mom said that when I was 6 months old, I was walking. That's unheard of.
Right.
There is no 6-month child walking, at least 10 months, because the neurology of the body sends signals to the muscles and the ligaments, and it normally starts to reflect when the child is 11, 12 months old, for the body to be able to hold itself. My mom told me at 6 months I was standing up. By 7 months I was walking, and by 8 months I was running. Okay,
right.
Which is something unheard of. And she also told me that at 2 years of age, when I lived in Puerto Rico, there was a fruit vendor, and the vegetable vendor, would go through the neighborhoods with a I forgot what the name of it, but with a speaker,
Right.
and he
Like
would
a
go, hey,
bullhorn.
I have a bullhorn. I have apples. I got vegetables, and he would sell that, and the wives at the time would step out and buy the fresh vegetables of fruits from the gentleman itself. And so that enamored me. And my mom said that I would listen to the guy at 2 years old. As soon as he passed the neighborhood, I would go grab a box. I would take the vegetables that my mom bought. I would put them in the box, and I would stand in the front yard selling the vegetables to whoever walked by. Now, of course, I didn't sell anything, but
Right.
in my mind, so what that did, Rico, was it ensured and it allowed me to know that I had this entrepreneurial personality
Yeah.
at 2 years of age. So that gave me confidence because when
Mm.
my mom told me the story and I wrote it in the book, I was like, I'm born to become an entrepreneur.
Yes, you
I was
were.
born to become a leader.
Yeah.
Those that know me could definitely affirm to that. And I contribute that to the story that my mom shared with me when I was, standing at 6 months old, walking and running by the 8th month, and being able to sell, which I wasn't really, but that really opened up my mind to say, yes, I know that I was born to do this. And I think that my success was due to the fact that I had no doubt whatsoever that I can communicate, that I can share stories, that I can talk to people, and thus I can lead as well. Because a leader that has no followers is somebody just taking a walk.
Yeah. I love
Leaders,
that. I love
yeah,
that.
leaders have to have people to follow,
Yeah,
right? They have to
exactly.
follow them.
Not even the
So
dogs
it's not
following you.
exactly. Otherwise, you're just taking a walk. So
So now you have your own, you're also helping other chiropractors in their business. With some of your clients that you've worked with, what do you see are some of the common mistakes they're doing in their clinics, not just in business, but also with their staff?
so you taught me this years ago. So there's 7 stages to grow a business. And so what I found in my own business, what I found when I was leading these organizations was that these organizations had taken the first 3 steps, very successful. They did step one, perfect. It opened up step two. It opened up step three. Then they overstepped. They didn't follow step four and step five. And they were sitting at step six, seven being the pinnacle. They were at six, but they weren't as successful as they thought they were going to be. And they couldn't figure it out. So I'll give you a prime example. I'm working with these chiropractors. They own $3 million clinics, and they're stuck in growth. Even though they're one percenters in producing a chiropractor. They have 3 clinics producing $1 million each, which is not shabby for chiropractors that just graduated 5 years ago. So they're newbies in the business and they're doing amazing, but they're stuck. And they were stuck because they grew so fast and they skipped step four and step five. And thus they were at step six. And what I said is, okay, stop. Let's go back to step three. Let's figure out what was successful, but let's figure out what happened in step four. Well, step four is they didn't hire an office manager. Step five was that they didn't hire executive leadership. So the responsibilities could have been shared instead of the owners having to do everything, hold the meetings, make the decisions, create the vision, they had 7 hats that they were wearing. So they were stuck and they couldn't grow anymore. So as soon as I started working with them, we identified where the problems were, where they were stuck. And I brought them back to step three and we reinforced step three. We worked on step four. We worked on step five. Now they're on step six. And now we're going to scale their businesses to 7 to 10 chiropractic offices doing $1 million. So that mistake of jumping step four and five basically could have cost them $6 million.
Wow.
And so me going in there and helping them identify and create clarity and vision and mission and how to scale their business, going back to redo those steps is huge for them and obviously huge for me because now I have a case study that I can use for other businesses as they use my services.
So when you step into a clinic that is hiring you or thinking about hiring you, what are some of the key critical things you're looking for to determine where they're in trouble and what they're doing well?
So I've learned that the first thing that I do is I go and do a SWOT analysis. I want to make sure that they know where their strengths are and where their weaknesses and where the opportunities and where are the trends, because I want to make sure that they're aware of these things. If they're not aware of these things, then number one, I bring them back to that. Number two is communication. Every organization, I don't care if it's a $20 million business or a $100 million business, They all have the same problem.
Yep.
It's a lack of communication. It's the silo mentalities that we talked about. It's not understanding the vision and the mission. It's removing obstacles by identifying these behaviors. There's some people that have been with the company for 10 years and been put in an executive position, but that person, when you test them for behavioral analysis, realize that their skill sets are not being used correctly. But because they've been a loyal employee, you keep them in that position, but that's the barrier.
Right.
You either have to
Exactly.
put this person someplace else where their skill sets they can thrive, or you have to replace that person with somebody that has the skill sets to allow your organization to go there. And so I do these different steps to ensure that if it's something that I can help them with, we look at their finances, we look at what their spending habits, we look at the whole aspect of the business, and then I give them an analysis. Now, this is what's interesting, and I learned this from a dear friend of mine. I never quote unless I go to the office and I there talk to the patients, I talk to the doctors, I talk to the associates, I talk to the employees, and I do it one-on-one because I want them to be transparent and tell me the truth. When you do it in a team, you're not going to talk ill about your the owner or the boss, because you're not going to do that. So taking the time to go in there and customize my recommendations has been huge, because now when I go to the owners and I explain to them all the things that we've done, they see the problem, they recognize the problem, and they realize that they can fix it if they want to. But you know what? Why waste time? They've already wasted time. So part of the fix is, let me hire somebody like Dr. Cordero,
Right.
that actually have seen the issues, identify the issues, and has the fixes to accelerate the process so we can grow as an organization and scale a lot quicker.
So you've seen the evolution of business, right? You know, when you had your own, through being a CEO, and where we are today. And you have already mentioned this several times, how we use analysis and reports to better define some of those gaps or bottlenecks in businesses. How have you seen the use of behavior analytics and reports as a value add today, as, say, compared to when you had your own clinic?
It's night and day. So I'll give you an example and then I'll come back to it. So a child comes to my office as a chiropractor, and I can't take an x-ray on a child, right? Because it's not the proper thing to do. Unless somebody's got a broken bone, then you send them to the hospital. But in my office, there was really no need to take x-rays at young babies, okay? So how do you convince the parents that you found the problem? I can talk to them, right? I can, from an expert perspective, say, hey, well, I felt the bone. Can you feel it? And they're touching, they don't feel nothing because they don't understand what my job is. And so I realized real quick in practice that if I can show analytics, if I can show something that justifies what I'm telling them, and now it's a data produced item, that they're going to go, wow, yeah, that makes sense. He said that there was a bone out, thus it's creating interference. So when he does the scan for thermography, there's going to be heat on one side of the spine more than the other side of the spine. And when the doctor makes the adjustment on the spine and we do the thermography testing again, it changed or improved. So now that visual made a huge difference for the parents in wanting to commit to care. In business, when I use behavior analytics, and I started using it since I met you, now when I talk to people about their business, they go, oh, yeah, oh, no. But when I show them the analytics and I show them where they're missing the point, and when I show them on themselves, they're this type of leader, and thus they're never going to communicate correctly with the rest of the team. Now they start to listen, because the behavior analytics don't lie. The graphs don't lie. The personality profile doesn't lie. And then I make my recommendations with the profile results and give them then, exercises and things for them to do to improve. And thus now it has nothing to do with Ed Cordero. It has to do with the science. So anytime you have science to prove it, you are so much more successful than somebody that's just going to talk their way through. In the past, I did that, right?
Sure.
Because
We all did.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. And so back in the day, you just talked. And if you had a good talk game, you were going to get conversions.
Right.
Nowadays, you got to use skill sets that are going to be data driven to let people know, here you are now. And then we'll repeat the test in 6 months and we compare. And now it's visible. And the owner, the entrepreneur, the leader sees the value of it and has control because he or she can make decisions based upon the way that they communicate with their team, their leadership team, executive team, employees, teammates, etc.
Yeah, the way the market's changing, when you have multi-generational trends are changing so fast, technology's changing so fast that if you are hiring, if you're onboarding, if you're training, if you want to be certain that you have the right people on the right team doing the right things, you have to incorporate some form of data. We have KPIs to make sure people are selling the right thing and measuring their rewards. You can use the same type of mindset for your right position, right person, right leadership, communication. Technology has advanced so much that we can now really, even to the minute detail, determine environment, communication, leadership structure. We can even have a predictive index whether this person is going to survive in this role, in that culture, and with that leadership, and what is their performance going to be like. So as organizations, if you're not using some form of analytics, behavioral analytics, the people, your talent that makes or breaks your business, then you're missing out, and that is probably why you're struggling in order to get higher talent with higher performance. Could be, your top performer could be the biggest friction for the entire organization, but most people are thinking about the revenue that talent is bringing in versus the cohesiveness of that talent. And speaking of cohesiveness, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I'll give you a prime example or a fix. When I was in academia and we were hiring somebody based on a job description, okay?
Right.
We were writing the job description based upon what we thought we needed. When we did the analytics review, we realized that we needed to write a whole new job description with somebody that could actually do two jobs instead of hiring two different people. So not only did we save money in the organization, we actually found a more qualified person that could do the job of two people, and they could handle it because we wrote the job description and we wrote the template based upon the need to the organization, not just to fill in the job because Mary retired or Mary left and we want to replace Mary, even though Mary might have not been doing the job
the first time. Exactly. Yeah, and that's a critical point there that most organizations miss because they haven't changed how they hire for years. When you focus on what does the role require today and in 5 years from now, what is the culture or the trends, and you adjust the job description to that role benchmark, you're going to attract the person that naturally fits the role. Skill can be taught, right? And sometimes too much experience creates a bottleneck for the results that you're looking for. So I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. The job description is the entry point to the quality of talent that either is going to accelerate that culture or completely disrupt it. And that's why 70+% of people leave their managers because they were in the wrong culture with the wrong leader and the role did not fit them naturally. We just hired them for skill. So as we're getting to our close here, I understand that you are now have a new role, not just you're a consultant, but of course, El Presidente can't be sitting around Florida not doing anything. So tell me about your new role.
So I thought I retired the first time. And then
you never retire.
I ended up visiting an organization and they had just gone through challenges with their CEO and hired me basically on the spot. And then now when I was done with that one, I had a lapse of time that I had. That's why I wrote the book. And I was like, all right, let me think about retirement is not the right word. So because of my years of experience, 32 years practicing and in the chiropractic world, there's a trade organization within our profession called the International Chiropractors Association, and they're responsible for advocacy. They're responsible for protecting the profession of chiropractic, not only in the United States, but internationally as well. And so they opened up a CEO position. They have never had in that CEO position somebody with the extensive knowledge, especially from being a chiropractor for 20 years, being a CEO and a leader for 12 years, and then being an entrepreneur for 32 years. So I happen to have the skill sets that they were looking for, and they offered me an opportunity to become their CEO. I'm excited about it because through the previous CEO positions, I've always had an international connection. So I traveled. My first job in academia, I traveled to 5 out of the 7 continents, bringing the message of chiropractic in academia to 5 out of the 7 continents. So I build relationships, and that's another WTF. You got to build relationships.
Yeah.
Because if you don't build relationships, eventually you're going to reach out to somebody, and that person said, "Oh, I remember the days that you treated me with disrespect, and that you didn't want to answer my calls and whatever else." And you know what? Done. Hang up the phone. So you want to create long-lasting relationships. So this is going to serve me in this position because now I have to go and travel the world making connections in advocacy to protect chiropractic around the world and with all the people that I know around the world. So the announcement came out last week of this new position. I start on the 17th of this month, and then I'm active on April 1st. I've gotten over 1,000 emails and responses from all over the world. My new employers are over the moon. Why? Because they want somebody that has these connections, that knows that what chiropractic is, that's lived it, that has the wisdom and experience. And so I feel this is a great opportunity for me that I'm going to bring value. And that's another WTF. If you don't bring value to an organization, then you might as well not even lead, because you have to bring value. It's not about you. It's about organization, people, and then self.
Correct.
And if you have that all screwed up, forget about it. That's why a lot of organizations are messed up, because it's about the leader, then the people, and then the organization. They got it inverted. Has to be organization, then the people that you serve, and then of course the self, the person, the CEO, whoever's leading the teams. So in this particular case, it's going to give me a great opportunity to be involved in politics, which is the thing that I go, oh my God, do I really want to?
When I heard that, I'm like, I don't know how he's going to do that.
Well, but the thing is, it's part of my growth process as well. I understand politics. I've done it for 32 years, but now I'm actually the face of politics and advocacy for the profession. So it's gonna help me to grow as an individual as well. So it's very exciting. Of course, it comes with many challenges.
Sure.
When you speak to many different organizations, everybody's got a different opinion on how things need to be done, and you have to be that neutral person that kind of calms the waters and say, "Hey, this is our mission. This is our vision. This is the path." If I look at something and it doesn't clear to my lenses, then it doesn't benefit the organization. Then I don't want to be part of it. So I have to be very focused in making sure that I'm looking through those lenses, and if it fits, then I make decisions for the organization. If they don't fit, then I don't want to do that for the organization. So it's exciting. It gives me an opportunity to continue my passion, which is leadership, which is entrepreneurship, which is obviously chiropractic. That's given me everything in 32 years. And so I'm excited for the new role. I think it's going to be something very good. Matter of fact, I just called my team. I'm going up to Washington, D.C., where they have their offices. And they're already wanting me to meet with senators up there, at the White House up there. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, hey guys,
let me get my feet wet first here.
Give me a week to find where the bathroom is. And after that, we can go and run. But it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. And I know that I'm going to bring value to the organization. And I'm excited for that.
So if you were to summarize our conversation today for that young chiropractor or that chiropractic clinic that may be struggling in leadership, what would be 2 or 3 key, what's the fix nuggets that you would give them?
So it doesn't matter if it's a chiropractor, any entrepreneur,
Yeah.
whether you have a small business, it doesn't really matter if it's in the health field or whatever, and any business person, any entrepreneur. Number one, you need to do some SWOT analysis on yourself first, because you need to know where your strengths are.
That's good.
Where your opportunities and where your weaknesses and where the threats. Once you feel confident that you know what you know and you identify what you don't, you start working on those weaknesses. You don't have to spend time on the strengths. That's already an inborn, natural, innate thing. And so you want to start working on your SWOT on yourself. Then you want to work it on the team that you want to see where they're on mission with you. Because the worst thing it is that the leader is on this mission and everybody else is in the opposite direction. So understanding your team and whether you're clear with your vision, with your mission, the direction of the organization, how the organization is going to scale, that SWOT analysis on you first and then on your team establishes that everybody is on board. And then you have to hire a coach. You have to hire a consultant. Why? Because if you look at every successful athlete in the world, everybody has a coach. Why do you think you have a coach or a consultant? Because if you knew it yourself, you would be where you are. You wouldn't have these challenges. So the sooner you identify that, the sooner you can be in a process of learning to become a better leader, and having somebody to support you through that process is huge, And so I would definitely hire a coach or a consultant as soon as possible. And then the third thing is I would have and I forgot the word, Rico. Maybe you can help me here. Oh, I would have a succession plan.
Yes.
You have to have a succession plan. I don't care if you're day one in practice or in business or you're 50 years in business. If you don't have a succession plan, your legacy is going to be thrown out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the three things: SWOT on yourself, SWOT on your team, mission and vision to make sure that everybody's on board. Get a coach or consultant to help you, and then have a succession plan. So that way your legacy will continue and you're able to enjoy, your retirement days and be able to still contribute to your business, your organization, your career, your profession. So those are the things that I would say that are helpful.
Such great advice from El Presidente. And I hope everyone takes that to heart. I really like that self-SWOT analysis. I don't think I've ever heard that before. That's something that most people we need to do. So we do have a practice here. Dr. Cordero, we have the previous guest leave a question for the new guest. So here's your question that the previous guest left for you. What is something that's interesting about you that most people cannot find online?
I'm funny. I'm a funny guy. I laugh at my own jokes. My wife doesn't think I'm funny, but I think I'm pretty funny. So I think that relates to leadership because I'm down to earth. I can laugh at myself when I make a mistake, and I can laugh with others at the same time. Not laugh about person, but laughing together. To make things just a little bit more even keel. So that's a great question, and I appreciate that because I really do think that I'm funny.
Yeah.
And I always tell my kids, your mother married me because I'm funny.
There you go. That's just the humor. Yeah. All right, so it's your turn.
That's how I say.
So what question would you like to leave for our next guest?
What in your mind or in your perceived mind, how do you see your legacy evolving in what you're doing right now? Whether it's a profession or whether it's a business, where do you see your legacy in the future?
Personal or business? That's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah. And I think it's a great question, Rico, because what it does is it allows you to think, okay, I'm busy, but am I being effective and leaving a legacy behind for other people to continue? They call that standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
The giants that went before us, we can stand upon their shoulders and continue to build. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not thinking about legacy, then obviously that's a problem. And it's not about an ego thing. It's about this person brought this to here, I brought it to here, and now somebody else needs to come up here.
Which brings that full circle about making sure you are training your replacement. Legacy isn't about your face on a banner or your statue. It's legacy about how did I help somebody else stand to the next level? How do we continue to grow this? And that used to happen with families, right? Where our parents wanted us to do better than they did. And that created a much better generation. The same is true with any industry or any job. If you're a truly passionate leader, you're looking to help others to take that message, that mission, that vision, whatever it may be, to the next level. And that's how legacy is created through things that are greater and bigger than ourselves. Dr. Cordero, I can tell you what a privilege it's been to speak with you. We could do this for hours. We got to do this again in Spanish for all our Latino familia that's out there. Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much. Best of luck with your new endeavors. I'm sure we're going to have you back again. Thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Thank you so much, Rico. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for always being there for me and giving me this opportunity to share my heart and my wisdom, my experience with your guests. And I look forward to continue to work together and become as successful as we can for the next generation.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. I can't wait to see you guys next time.